Hello, welcome back. This is the third video now in this series how I share my 10-year experience of undiagnosable chronic pain and also my journey on how I'm going to try and fix that before I amputate my feet. So in the first two videos I explained a bit about my backstory, what I want to achieve with the channel, how I want to help people, how I want people to learn from my experience. In the second video I went through my operations and sort of how I ended up in this position, did most of the procedures that I've had to. And I've also alluded to functional medicine once or twice in those videos. So today I'm going to explain what functional medicine is, how I'm using it or being treated by it, what the full approach is, how it differs to conventional medicine, and sort of the root causes that we found that may or may not be the cause of what my pain is. Hopefully it will be. Hopefully, even though it's not a diagnosis in the conventional sense, hopefully it is finding the root cause for me. Okay, so what is functional medicine? I'll go through my explanation of it and then I'll take you through some official documents to show you the definitions and see if that helps explain it a little bit better than I can. What I would say is a holistic, whole body, food-centered approach to making you well from the inside out. And then once your whole body is well, you essentially can't be sick. So the two pillars of functional medicine on how you get sick. One is through a deficiency, whether nutrient, vitamin, that causes one thing to go wrong, that has a knock-on effect on other things, and then a little bit further down the line you're presented with symptoms. And the other one is an overload of toxins. These toxins come from things like pesticides, the environment, pollution, stress, how you metabolize things, even down to the fragrances, the soaps that we use, detergents, an awful lot of modern day things, like especially cleaning things and things around the house. They're so toxic and poisonous to us that yes, we do detoxify these things, but when there's a reason such as a deficiency that I mentioned before that makes it hard to detox these things, it builds up and builds up and builds up. And there's a great book by Dr. Stephen Cabral called The Rain Barrel Effect, and his approach is that basically you have a rain barrel full, which is sort of your body's capacity to handle toxins, stress, all of these things from the environment. And he goes deep into the numbers on just how many toxins there are and how all of the things that we produce have known toxins, have known cancer-causing chemicals in them. But because we only ever test one thing in isolation, in a very small amount, we say it's safe. Then that goes into production, and when you can combine all of these things, it's sort of a large reason for why we are sicker than ever as a population. But essentially, the rain barrel gets full, that's as much capacity as we can take, and then as it overflows, that's when things in our body start breaking, that's when we show our outward symptoms. So I've got a couple of tabs open here that might help explain it a little bit better than I did. Functional medicine is a systems biology-based approach that focuses on identifying and addressing the root cause of disease. Each symptom or differential diagnosis may be one of many contributing to an individual's illness. As the graphic illustrates, a diagnosis can be the result of more than one cause. For example, depression can be caused by many different factors, including inflammation. Likewise, a cause such as inflammation may lead to a number of different diagnoses, including depression. The next bit is what applies to me. The precise manifestation of each cause depends on the individual's genes, environment, and lifestyle, and only treatments that address the right cause will have lasting benefit beyond symptom suppression. So, how that applies to me is that I've got pain in my feet. For the last 10 years, I've been going to regular doctors and surgeons, well, not regular, but conventional, and they've been saying, well, you've got an issue with your feet. What's up with your feet? We'll scan your feet, we'll test your feet, we'll maybe do a blood test, we'll maybe look at your spine. But largely it's based solely on looking at my feet. On the other hand, the functional medicine doctor, she believes that the reason that I present my pain in my feet is actually because at the time that my rain barrel overflowed and essentially this pain signal broke and stayed on, I was running every single day and I was doing sports every single day. So it was my heels that were taking an awful lot of battering every single day. They were having a lot of acute inflammation. So it was essentially my body's way of saying, we are breaking. Where are we breaking? Well, it seems like we're getting an awful lot of trauma to our heels at the minute. So that seems about the right place. That we should just be sending this pain signal full time in the heels because we're just getting battered there. Of course, they're my own words. That's not exactly what the doctor said. This one kind of shows the difference between functional and conventional medicine, and the big one for me is that whenever I've gone to a conventional medicine doctor, they've either given me a pill or surgery or something like that. What a conventional medicine doctor does is they match your symptoms to a diagnosis, so they can stick a label on you, and then they can give you a pill that likely suppresses that symptom. But then how many times have you gone to the doctor for one thing, they give you a pill, 6 months later you've got a side effect as a result of it, so you've got one tablet to manage one thing, another to manage a side effect of that, which then means that you've got to do something else, and if you kind of find yourself in an ongoing circle of picking up these illnesses every 6 months. Sometimes the side effects of other pills, or other times it's more of a like a collaborative thing where the momentum of illness builds up. Whereas functional medicine, it looks at the root cause, it focuses on building up your body's ability to cope with these things. So when I went for my initial appointment, she took far more detailed history than anybody's ever done before. It took me about 3 hours to fill out all the paperwork beforehand, for her then to spend a few hours analysing it and kind of putting together a preliminary plan. For her then to go through my blood tests, all the tests that I've had done before, and then she put together a timeline of sort of every single issue that's ever happened to me or I've had from birth, and how that all accumulates and presents into the pain that I'm in today. And they are things like, when I was 3 weeks old, my lung collapsed and I went on a ventilator and I was in ICU for a couple of weeks. And at the time, in August 1996, which is when I was born, the likelihood of them using antibiotics, and quite a strong dose of antibiotics, which wreaks absolute havoc on your gut microbiome, and we now know that 80% of your immune system lives in the gut. That's a terrible way to start off life. That really makes you susceptible to these illnesses and disease. And not long after, I got asthma. There are lots of things. I'm not going to go through my whole life's medical history, but there are also lots of things in the blood test which I will go through, which does impact your ability to recover from these things. And essentially what she said is, you start life at 100%. Usually you start at 100%, you get an injury, you come down to about here, let's say you have an operation, and then you should recover and get back to baseline. But when you have these things wrong with you and you're not quite detoxing properly and you're not quite recovering properly, and I have had quite a significant medical history, you start at 100%, at 3 weeks old your lungs collapse, you come right down here, you have antibiotics that inhibits your ability to recover. You maybe recover to 90% by the time you're a toddler. You then have another issue, you get to 90% of that. And then just recurrently, you get to 90% of 90% of 90%. And then you get to the point that I was at, of 16 years old, that your body just struggles to recover, struggles to heal, and is kind of stuck in this chronic inflammation loop. So inflammation can mean so many things. It's kind of a cause to a lot of things, but it's also not a cause. It's a cause to the symptom usually, but it usually needs something to trigger that. So essentially it's a middleman. Something happens to make inflammation high, and when inflammation's high, it breaks things. Simple enough, I guess. I'm just going to read through some of the notes from my functional medicine doctor, and that might help explain it a little bit better. So here, inflammation is caused by inappropriate triggering of your immune system and contributes to the risk of many diseases. Low-level inflammation can be caused by long-term infections like tooth abscesses, not appropriate to me, or even a damaged gut microbiome, which can definitely happen from a lot of antibiotics. Other causes of inflammation can be multiple physical traumas, definitely me, like injuries or surgery, as the normal inflammatory response fails to switch off. Food or allergies or sensitivities, toxin exposure like plastics, heavy metals, VOCs or household chemicals, nutrient deficiencies, mold exposure, stress, physical or emotional, childhood traumas, medication side effects, or lifestyle. But to go alongside just how important the gut is, there is leaky gut or intestinal permeability, as it's formally known, which is being studied more and more and actually being found to potentially be the root cause in up to 90% of autoimmune conditions. So what that is your gut has a single cell lining. When that lining gets damaged, it can be damaged by things like painkillers, allergies, stress, toxins, things like that. It essentially breaks that thin barrier, and when that thin barrier breaks, it can allow undigested food, toxins, bacteria, things like that through the wall, and essentially that triggers an immune response, and therefore inflammation happens because it's trying to calm that down. So what this is from is potentially gut dysbiosis. It's not something that I ever considered early on, and it's not something that conventional medicine doctors considered. They haven't really looked into or deeply considered how it impacts the whole body, because I've never really had gut issues. It's not like I ever had IBS or anything like that to say, this might be causing a lot of stress on your body, that sort of thing. So essentially, your gut is meant to have trillions of bacteria, and when you get far too many bad bacteria than the good bacteria, things start messing up. When 80% of your immune system is held in the gut, that can cause large amounts of damage. So to put some of these things together, at the top of the screen we have a summary from the functional medicine doctor. I'm just going to read through that. In your case, it's likely that early antibiotics and hospital treatment led to gut dysbiosis. Up to the age of 3, our developing microbiome, which is essentially all of your gut bacteria, I guess is a way to summarise it, is extremely vulnerable and impacts our lifelong health. This, along with potential lung inflammation, led to asthma and allergies, along with a childhood ACE, an adverse childhood event, dealing with something that I'm going to blur out because I'm not quite comfortable with putting that on the internet just yet, which is a significant stress which impacts your gut and hormone balance. This all leads to lower immunity, grommets, that's just an operation I had when I was about 12 in my ears. Surgery is a stress that can impact your gut, and then a very high level of exercise, which I spoke about in the last video. Inflammation is part of the normal healing response, and repeated high intensity exercise with no time for recovery can turn into chronic inflammation, as it never has a chance to switch off. And that's sort of what I was saying before about that chronic inflammation in my heels because I was running every day. This, along with the foot injury which triggered it, unfortunately led to low-grade continuous inflammation, triggering pain. This was further exacerbated by multiple operations, painkillers, which further trigger leaky gut and inflammation. Chronic pain is part inflammation, part remembered pain pathways, and part triggering of the chronic stress response. Changes in the structure and processing of the pathways in the brain related to pain sensation are an end result by reducing inflammation and supporting brain health via gut health, because the gut-brain axis is so closely linked. And triggering the impulses themselves, you can use a multifactorial approach to switch off pain and remodel those same areas. So if we go back to the part remembered pain pathways part, this links to what I spoke about last week with what the chiropractor and the functional medicine doctor together found, with the link with concussion and the potential subsequent brain damage. The Osgood-Schlatter's disease, which is what I had in my knees as a teen, as a precursor to this. And essentially that breaking proprioception. And proprioception is the ability for your brain to recognize your body in space. So if we relate this in a practical application, the connection between the knees, the brain is, let's call it broken, it's not fully broken, is disrupted. So the brain doesn't quite know the status of my feet. It doesn't know whether they're okay or not. It does kind of realise that there's an awful lot of inflammation there. It can't figure out that there's nothing wrong with my feet because that proprioception is broken. So this is just another factor really in this whole body inflammation and then presenting as heel pain. Then when I spoke about the blood test before, so raised bilirubin is one of the things that the functional medicine doctor has found and is not concerned about but wants to work on. And this is something else that a conventional medicine doctor has looked at and said, yeah, it's a little bit high, but it's fine. It doesn't really mean anything. So I've got raised bilirubin. This confirms the diagnosis of Gilbert syndrome, or I'm sure it's French, so Gilbert's syndrome. It's usually considered harmless, but it kind of depends on what that causes and what it goes with. So it's a genetic liver condition which leads to the reduced activity of enzymes required for proper detoxification, called glucuronidation. Bilirubin is meant to be detoxified via that pathway, which is why it's raised. People with Gilbert's have a 30% reduction in the enzymes possible for detoxifying bilirubin out of the body properly. So again, this goes back into my whole body's ability to detox, to heal, to recover, that sort of thing. The consequences of this being impaired, I'm not going to say it again, and high bilirubin levels are poor handling of dopamine, glutamate, serotonin and estrogen, and high levels of bilirubin which impact the gut. And again, there's a little bit more on how it impacts the gut further down. It's also responsible for detoxifications of toxins and drugs like paracetamol, aspirin, NSAIDs, that sort of thing, which I definitely have had a lot of in my lifetime. Some more things that she found on my blood tests are high albumin, which is essentially a marker of liver and kidney status. Uric acid, that came back at 288. Both of these things are being cleared by regular doctors saying, well, they're in range. They are definitely the high end of in range, but they're in range, so they're fine. But once you get to 300 with uric acid, you're looking at very dangerous levels, like danger of death levels. Low TSH, again, low but in range. What else was there? There was ferritin and transferrin. So ferritin is essentially stored iron, and transferrin is the ability to transport that iron. So I had really high levels of iron stored and low levels of transferrin, so I'm not able to get that around the body properly, to utilize it properly. And when you store too much iron, that can lead to hemochromatosis. There is also a chance that that can cause heel pain in itself, interestingly enough. She doesn't think that's the cause. She thinks, again, these are more systemic consequences of all the things that we've just been over, and that, again, once we get the liver working properly, get the kidney supported, all these kind of things working again, that they will recover too. Those levels will go back to normal, they'll go back to well, and essentially be a positive side effect of also treating my feet. So what am I doing about it? Or what are we doing about it? It's a 6-month protocol that she's put together. It involves working on that leaky gut, repairing that gut barrier, and that should play an awful large part in it. Supporting my liver and kidneys with proper nutrients. I think I said earlier in the video, it's a food-based approach in functional medicine. Now, Hippocrates, the godfather of all medicine, said hundreds if not thousands of years ago that food is medicine. But getting all the nutrients from food alone, one, is difficult in any day and age, but currently with pesticides and over-farming and declining soil quality, it's really difficult to get all the it's nigh on impossible to get all the nutrients you need from food alone. So it's about supporting my body from the inside out, getting it well, and hopefully all of these things will then start to disappear. So I'm just going to grab my box of tricks, and yes, that is tricks that I said. So what I have is 31, if I remember rightly, vitamins and minerals to take every day, some Chinese medicine herbs to also support circulation, because that message and the ability for my feet to recover is going to be inhibited again if I don't have proper circulation, because my feet and my lower legs are always cold. That's probably part of removing the nerves, that my body is kind of disregarded, that part of my body. So we have currently Cellcore, which is a company that does these detox protocols. It's phase 1. I'm coming to the end of phase 1 currently. I have vitamin D3 and K2, something that almost nobody gets full amounts of. When you take D3, if you're taking about 4,000 IUs a day, you've got to take K2 to go with it for absorption. I've got NAC, N-acetylcysteine, that's an amino acid used as an antioxidant, but it also helps protect the liver. I've got organic krill oil as a form of omega-3. It's actually a misconception that omega-6s and 3s are just as important as each other, or should be taken at equal levels. Omega-6s, especially if they're any higher than omega-3s, can be extremely inflammatory. This kind of backwards ratios of 6s higher than 3s you tend to find in fish that's being farmed. So if you look at the back of a supermarket fish, it'll often say if it's wild caught, because that's a selling point, but a lot of them will be farmed and have the backwards omega 6:3 ratio. I've got a multi-nutrient antioxidant formula. I've got Chinese medicine herbs 44 and 77, sorry. They are to improve circulation and to reduce inflammation. I've got things such as a very thorough multivitamin. A lot of multivitamins that you get off the shelf or somewhere like MyProtein or Bulk, they're filled with bulking agents. They don't quite have the right ratios of the vitamins that you need, or the right forms. Like, let's say, a multi-mineral, that they don't have the chelated version, which is essentially the version that your body best absorbs and best utilizes. And then the actual cell core protocol itself, for the first month, it's mitochondrial and detox support. So a lot of things to benefit my ATP in the cells. So when you put that in a scientific way and you read it off of the site instead of my own words, phase 1 consists of BC ATP, biotoxin binder, CT minerals and KL support. BC ATP assists the body with ATP production, while CT minerals supports mental clarity, immune function, cellular repair and detoxification, easy for me to say. KL support helps maintain kidney and liver function, and the biotoxin binder lends increased support to the gut microbiome, which in turn aids healthy digestion and immune function. Again, going straight off the cell core site for phase 2, which is what I'm moving into now after about 4 weeks on phase 1. I'll continue taking things like the multivitamins, the krill oil, the vitamin D, but I'll also go with phase 2 of this. It says, after preparing the body for detoxification in phase 1, phase 2 focuses on balancing the gut microbiome, supporting healthy bile flow, the removal of the occasional intestinal buildup, and optimizing digestive function. Phase 2 consists of advanced TUDCA, BC ATP, biotoxin binder, Para 1 and Para 2. So Para 1, our flagship gut and immune support product made from 100% pure mimosa pudica seed, aids the elimination of waste in the GI tract, whereas Para 2 steps in to support enhanced digestive function, with herbs used traditionally to promote detoxification and gut health. So that one mentioned the herbs. You notice, like I said before, there's no pharmaceutical drugs. I guess anything's pharmaceutical if it's made in a lab, but these are vitamins, minerals, nutrients, herbs. Essentially, in functional medicine, nature is medicine. Advanced TUDCA, TUDCA, is introduced in this phase to promote healthy bile flow and support liver health, both of which are essential for optimizing the body's natural drainage and detox processes. Patients will continue to take the BC ATP from the first phase, as well as the biotoxin binder to support digestive function, energy levels, mitochondrial function, and immune health. So from that side of things, we are taking a huge sledgehammer to everything internally. We're going to try and support every sort of pathway to detoxification, to rebuild as we can. I'm also combining that with working with a health coach as prescribed by the functional medicine doctor. So she's got me on a very low inflammation diet. I'm currently eating keto with the view that sugar is a large cause of inflammation. And some of the other issues that I mentioned before, they can actually affect my ability to metabolize sugar. So that has a couple of issues in itself. I'm not going to bother going into that. So I'm currently eating keto. This is a moderate to high protein, high fat diet. It's essentially meat and vegetables. It's a hell of a lot of vegetables, an awful lot of oils, butters, nuts. Another thing I've been doing alongside this is I've been growing my own kefir every day. So if you don't know what kefir is, it looks a little bit like an out-of-date yogurt. It's a grain that is fermented a little bit like sourdough, so it just keeps growing and growing. You pour milk over the grains, you leave it in a jar overnight, and by the time you come back in the morning, you've got kefir. It's just absolutely full of good bacteria for the gut. The functional medicine doctor swears by it for almost everybody. She says it's like the number one thing that you can do. It's so cheap when you make it yourself. If you buy it in a supermarket, it'll be quite expensive because it's a little bit like an adult's Actimel. But yeah, it's super easy to do and it's so good for you. It doesn't taste great, so I've just been putting it in a protein shake or something like that. But yeah, dead easy to do. And finally, the other things that I've been doing, again prescribed by the functional medicine doctor, is working with an acupuncturist and a chiropractor. So the chiropractor, I've already mentioned her before. Essentially her job is to get my proprioception working again. So that is for when all of this inflammation in my body settles down, which it should start doing now. We're now 4 weeks in. I should start seeing some signs of it in the next 4 to 6 weeks, if not already. But again, it's been 10 years, so it's not going to be an overnight fix. So yeah, when my internals calm down, my brain also needs to recognise that my feet are okay. When I've had all these nerves removed, that essentially breaks the proprioception even more. My brain doesn't know where my feet is. It doesn't know how to send messages to my feet, I guess. So that's something that we've been working on with exercises. And again, that's also where the acupuncture comes in. I am so far having some really good non-pain wins. So I guess this is a good pain win, actually. The chiropractor was outlining a plan, and she said, usually you will get some ups and some downs along the way. They'll be quite high and low at first, and then hopefully as things start to settle down, as we get a few more weeks into the treatment, the highs won't be as high, the lows won't be as low, but generally the pain should start getting a little bit better and a little bit better. But the day after my first treatment, I did actually have a good pain day, which is extremely rare. It was followed by some bad days. She did say that would happen, but it's also encouraging for her to outline the plan and say these things are likely going to happen, and them actually happen. So for it to say you might have a good day, you might have a bad day, it might follow the other, and then for it to immediately happen, that kind of really helps me to know that these women know what they're doing. Like all the other doctors that have told me, oh yeah, this is going to happen, and none of it ever did. So far, so good, really encouraging. And also, on the first day of acupuncture, so I'm having plenty in my feet, and especially around the heels. I'm having electroacupuncture. I'm having them up my legs, in my arms, my face, in my ears, on my head. The acupuncturist said I am her most needled client, which is kind of how it goes with my territory. I'm always the record-breaking client for whoever, or patient for whoever. But anyway, it's electroacupuncture on my heels. So you put the acupuncture needle in, you attach a little electrode, and it sends electrical pulses through. And she gave me the device to control the power of it. She set it up on 0.4 on the first day. And she said usually people don't need to go above 1, maybe 2 a push. So I'm going to set you off on 0.4. And because I've got such reduced sensation in my feet, because all the nerves have been removed, she said you might need to go a little higher, but I don't want to make it too high and then give you a huge electric shock and it hurt like mad. So on the first week, I needed to go to 9.8 out of 10. Bearing in mind, she said people very, very rarely go over 1 or 2. So yeah, 9.8 out of 10. On the second week, it went down to about 7. On the third week, it went down to about 4.5. And last week, I hit 3.8. So far, so good. And they're not necessarily seeing that translate to my pain getting better just yet. But I'm feeling better and more energized and sleeping better. I know my diet's on point. So, you know, like when you're on a weight loss journey and some people say, focus on the non-scale wins, stuff like that. How's your energy? Again, similar. How's your energy? How's your sleep? How's your libido? How are you feeling? How are you working? That sort of thing. I feel like so far so good. I'm making lots of progress, and hopefully soon it will translate into pain wins, and hopefully we'll see that pain just start to come down. However, in general, I don't think I can quite emphasize enough just how encouraging it is for someone after all these years to say, there are not necessarily, I know what's wrong with you, that you are very unhealthy, but there are definitely things here that we can work on. There are lots of reasons that may cause you pain. It may be one of them, it might be all of them. It's probably a mixture of some of them. Some are side effects of that, some are root causes, but essentially there's loads to work on. You're not this freak that just has this pain for no reason. And just because we don't know what, before this last 6 weeks or so, just because we didn't know what this reason was, never meant that there wasn't one. It doesn't mean that I'm breaking the laws of science. Like pain is received in the brain, It's sent from the brain. Essentially the functional medicine doctors disagree and the chiropractor disagrees of this law of science that if you have no nerve then you shouldn't feel it, because how else would you get phantom limb pain? So it's 50% nerve, it's 50% brain. But yeah, there's a reason for it. Hopefully this is the correct reason. It's really encouraging for people to speak with authority and then those things actually happen. I feel like I'm in really good hands. The 4 people that I've been working with, the health coach, the doctor herself, the chiropractor, the acupuncturist, they're all absolute fountains of knowledge. So far so good, and I'm really encouraged. But yeah, I'm about a month in now. Hopefully I can update again in a couple of weeks and I'll have more positive news. If you want to learn more about functional medicine yourself, there are so many resources. A couple of websites that I showed before they're a great place to start. But a couple of podcasts and a couple of books that I'm going to recommend. The doctor that I'm seeing, her and the chiropractor, they're sisters. They have their own podcast. It's called The Natural Doctors. Dr. Stephen Cabral, his podcast is called The Cabral Concept. He has 2,700 and maybe a little bit more episodes. I think he posts every single day. Again, he is a fountain of knowledge. He knows absolutely everything. He's got a search engine on his website. If you want to search your condition and try and get a little bit of insight in terms of functional medicine, then go and see him. He's actually my inspiration for getting into functional medicine, because from 16 to 27, he also had a string of horrific illnesses that conventional medicine said, I don't know, like, we can give you some labels, we can diagnose you, but there's no chance in hell we can get you any better. And then he followed Ayurvedic medicine, he travelled all around the world, and then he looked at integrative medicine. And that's essentially what functional medicine is. It's integrative of conventional medicine, ancient medicine, whether that's Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or anything else. It essentially picks up the wisdom and combines brand new 21st century testing and prowess and combines them. But yeah, he went on his own journey and got himself better, and now it's essentially his life's journey to spread that to other people. He truly is a remarkable man. If he had a cult, I would be his number 1 follower. Another one is Dr. Will Cole. So his podcast is The Art of Being Well. He doesn't quite go into as much detail on specific conditions as Dr. Cabral does. He more has guests on from around the world. He has a lot of functional medicine doctors, some people from all around the health space, and they just talk functional medicine. They're really interesting concepts. They really help for you to find a way to apply it on a personal level rather than just the theory, whereas Dr. Cabral is very much focused on the theory and the nitty-gritty details, and sometimes you've really got to concentrate to listen to it. And another one that I've only come across recently, which my health coach has recommended, is Drew Purohit, Dhrupurohit. His podcast, he's not a functional medicine practitioner himself, but he's a perfect mix of knowledge and entertainment. He kind of crosses that barrier, and he has such fantastic guests on that speak so well on things like weight loss resistance, diabetes, even how barefoot shoes can resolve chronic pain, stuff like that. He's got a little bit of everything, so he's a mixture of the technical, the detail, and the entertainment, so you don't have to like concentrate so hard. And then the podcasts that I listen to, they are my number 1 podcast, Mind Pump, the more of a gym and fitness based podcast. But if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have got onto Dr. Cabral, because they've had both Dr. Cabral and Will Cole on. They are in the health space, not so much the functional health space. So if you're looking for day-to-day podcast and entertainment, then Mind Pump are absolutely brilliant. If you're looking to get yourself fit and lose weight and stuff, they're top-notch for that. And if you want to look into maybe some conditions on some more sciencey things, then listen to the other ones. And then a couple of books that I'd recommend. One is Dr. Cabral's book that I've mentioned before, The Rain Barrel Effect. He really goes into the details on the things like the toxins that I mentioned earlier. He gives you the facts and figures on just how, essentially, if humans have touched it, they've ruined it. When it comes down to food, the environment, the products that we use, even down to like mattresses and kids' toys and perfume, and how to make non-organic food a little less harmful, and why you should absolutely shop organic where you can, and against processed food and stuff like that. So that is an absolutely amazing book. Then there's another one by Dr. Margaret Smith Peat. That's from maybe 25 years ago now. She's more of an Ayurvedic doctor. She was also the one that cured Dr. Cabral. Her book is My Doctor Says I'm Fine, so why do I feel so bad? And that's a great insight sort of into Ayurvedic and functional medicine. She teaches an awful lot about food and how food is medicine and how herbs can be used and stuff like that. Truly ahead of its time. That's a fantastic book. That is a little bit of a difficult read in the first 100 pages because it goes deep in the weeds on Ayurvedic signs and signals and how to read them and how to read your own body and diagnose yourself from that sort of thing. Once you get past that though, and she goes a little bit of lighter topics, very informative, kind of encapsulating read. So yeah, there's some resources that I'd like to shout out. I think that's everything so far on my functional medicine journey. If you've got any more questions, put them in the comments. If you want me to cover anything else, just let me know, and hopefully you've learned something from this. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.